Hi everybody, in this video we'll run through some of the attributes of our hex shader. Okay, so I have this dome mesh here and I want to cover it in hexagons. So let's turn the shader into a Brinderi Tech. Let's put an opaque spec and it automatically just creates some hexagons for you. If you notice, it's got raised edge here, so if you turn that off it can just be flat color. Okay, so we'll turn the raised edge on, and in your color here it's basically randomly picking colors between the high and low. So if I turn that to let's say a sort of like an orange, and this one to okay, so it's randomly picking those colors, and you also have a mortar color. So yeah, let's take that down a little bit. Okay, you have mortar thickness, and you have an edge thickness control. So I like that. You also have overall scale, so scaling this up will actually scale how many hexagons you get. Okay, in the specular we also have specular controls, so you have the specular power and strength of the hex tiles, and you have an independent one also for the mortar. It also covers whether you want to use a cube map or if you're using a light probe in the scene for reflections, but for this case I'm not going to use that. Now let's say I wanted to have some of these transparent, say you could make a fence or mesh. So for that we want the transparent shader, so let's go to the transparent specular. Okay, and that means that we can take these values, and if I make that one fully transparent, you see it's randomly picking again between the two. So if I wanted to make a fence, I make both of those transparent and I now have a fence. Okay, now as you can see we have a shadow problem. That, you know, we wouldn't want that shadow, we want it to be like a mesh. So let's change the transparency type to a shadow, and also we'd like it double-sided, so let's do a double-sided shadow. So now we'll get the cutoff shadow attribute. So if we slide that up, we now have our shadows. Let's make that a little bit darker. Okay, now on most double-sided things you'll get a small problem where sometimes it renders the back and the front at the same time. So you can see the back, if I increase the mortar thickness, you can see we're having a problem there where the back face is cutting through the front, and that's because it's the Z depth. You know, you're going to have a problem with that on a lot of 3D applications in real time. So what we have another shader we've added which will do two passes. So as you can see it's the BF, so it's going to render the back face first and then the front face. So now that issue is now been resolved. Okay, so let's bring that mortar thickness back down again. Okay, another great feature is the hex zone. So let's put the overall scaling to 14, and what that basically is, there's 14 tiles across, 14 tiles up. Okay, so you can choose to keep items, so you might want to keep 14, 14, and now you've just got a roof. Yeah, or you could increase it, and now you've got an opening. So just by fiddling with these, you can add or remove some of the lines, if you like, you know, the tiles. You have a walkthrough. Okay, so you can keep or reject, and it'll just do the opposite. Okay, so let's do the fence. So on here you can see I want a chain link fence around. So we will change that to a transparent shader, double-sided. So let's go to the transparent double-sided. That one should be fine. And in this particular case, we're going to want the chain link to be transparent. I'm going to make that a sort of a dark blue. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the texture mode to world space. At the moment it's using the texture coordinates of the mesh. So if I do it to world space, I can then change the overall scale to get my mesh, and then I can increase the mortar thickness, and I have my chain now. Now again, it's the shadow. I'm not getting a decent shadow, so let's change that to the double-sided with a shadow, and that will give us our cutout shadow, and we can increase that. So now we have our fence that quick. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is the base that it's stood on. So I'm just going to use an opaque specular. I'm going to remove the colours because I'm going to put a texture on these. So let's go to texturing, and I'm going to apply this rock stone and tile it 6 by 6. It should be alright to start with. I'm also going to do the same at a normal map, and I'm going to do the same with the mortar. We put this stone gravel on it and tile that about 12 by 12, and again add a normal map. Okay, now the specular is a little bit on the high side, so let's increase the power and decrease the strength slightly. Let's do the same for the mortar. Can fine tune it later, and let's bring that down. And I think what I do is I slightly tint each stone, something like that. Okay, the tiling, overall tiling, let's make that about 14, let's make them smaller. And what I want to do, I want to get rid of the edge. So if we go to the hex zones and we hit keep, let's keep 1 to 12 in the U and 1 to 12 in the V. So that should do it. Okay, that's it, I think. If you found this useful, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.